Thanks, Marcella. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We are the panel that brings its own water. I'm Brian Elliott, joined here today, thank you very much, by Mary Alice Vuicic, managed to botch it straight out the gate, Chief People Officer at Thomson Reuters, and Jonathan Marek, Chief Operating Officer at Guild. We're going to talk about how the C-suite comes together, how different parts of the organization, different functions have to work together to drive real AI transformation. 2025, you saw the Chief Work Officer theme kind of jump up all over the place, right? One ring to rule them all, sitting over IT and HR and workplace and comms. In the old days, maybe we would call that the Chief Administrative Officer, except Chief Work Officer is more exciting sounding. Jensen Huang, about this time last year, said, no, it's IT. IT is going to be the HR of agents. Eric Brynjolfsson, back in December, did an interview where he said, no, for every dollar you spend on tech, it's $9 on human capital development. So we're going to talk a little bit about how do you find the balance and how do you make that work. And maybe the right place to start, Mary Alice, is with you. At Thomson Reuters, how are you, as Chief People Officer, working with your IT and your business counterparts on driving actual change?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So for those of you who don't know Thomson Reuters, we are a business information services company. We sell highly curated proprietary information embedded in software to professions like lawyers, accountants, tax accountants, compliance people. We also have a news organization, media organization called Reuters, and we have about 27,000 colleagues around the globe. We, in 2023, at the beginning of 23, when consumer-grade generative AI was the focus for everyone, we made a major pivot in our product roadmap, our investment strategy, our M&A strategy, to fully embed this in our product roadmap. At the same time, we looked at how we were going to accelerate internal adoption of AI because of the opportunity. It's the single biggest value creation opportunity in our lifetimes. And that would also be supportive of accelerating the product roadmap. And so we decided to co-lead that with HR and technology. So it's fully co-led by those two leaders, myself and the head of technology. Secondly, we decided to make it an enterprise strategy. So this wasn't going to be off the side, that the top leaders of the organization were going to be the owners of this, ultimately, and that we were leading it on behalf of the organization. And that has enabled us to significantly accelerate the learnings and share the pilots, use cases, et cetera. In 2023, we really focused on broadly engaging the workforce and driving adoption and usage. In 2024, we continued that, but we also started to really measure what's the impact, the business impact of this. And then we continued that into 2025. We started building it into budgets and accountability. And so now we are really accelerating that. It's a hockey stick acceleration of how we're using it and the business benefits that we're deriving from it. We've had lots of learnings along the way, and I'm happy to talk about those.
That'd be great. Jonathan, maybe from your perspective, you're the COO of Guild, so you're not on top of either HR or IT. How is this working for you?
Yeah,
from an
indeed.
internal perspective?
Okay, so Guild, as a company, what we do, we work with large employers to upskill the workforce of the future. And my piece within that, running operations, is to run all of what we call our member-facing teams, so the employees who engage with Guild and our offerings. So all of our coaches, our member support folks, and all the operational teams that work with our employers or learning providers. And yes, that's neither HR nor IT. So what we think about is this triangle model. On the one hand, you have the tech teams, and they need to know the technology that's out there, how it fits in our tech stack, how to maintain it, security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you've got the HR team, who of course is thinking about L&D and how to upskill the organization, but also about career pathing and talent acquisition and how roles change and how we change our organization. Then you got me and my peers, I know the P&L inside and out. I know what our members or employers or learning providers need. And so I know where to point this that's going to get actual real value in the organization.
So let's get tactical, because I think you own the customer service function at Guild. That's one of the first places most organizations are targeting, and the range of approaches is all over the place. We're going to have Klarna's CEO up here at the end of the day today, so Kevin will have a lot of questions for him, I'm sure. But Klarna was one of the first out of the gates with AI sort of displacing a lot of customer support jobs. You guys at Guild, I think, have taken a different approach based on our conversation backstage. That's a little more thinking about people in their careers. Could you outline what you've done specifically?
Yeah, so in the last 6 months, we've implemented Sierra for our customer support, and it's been a huge win. And it really kind of illustrates the triangle. So on the IT side, the big thing was how do we get this up and running, develop a dozen plus journeys where we can fully take care of the member within that AI agent, and then continue to build those out. So right now, it handles about 20% of our inbound chat 6 months in. That number is going up week by week as we build up more journeys. And by the way, the CSAT is 4.8 out of 5 for those chat interactions, and we can now serve people 24/7 in preferred language. So huge capability gain. At the same time, we're thinking about the people side of this, because I've got a team of support specialists, and on the one hand, if all they're doing is answering queries that come in and reading the Guru cards and running a script, Sierra's gonna take that work. And we're being very forthright and honest about that that's what's gonna happen. But they have two different types of opportunities. So one opportunity is to lean into the agent and how I manage that agent. So we took a guy, Danny Alvarez, who was on the phones, sent him to San Francisco to go through Sierra University to build journeys. Other folks are doing QA for the agent. They're managing it. So that's one track. And the second track is how do we've heard these words, more human, a lot today. How do we lean into the humanity? Because our customers, our members, are working adult learners. They have a lot of barriers in their lives. They're often frontline employees. And we need that level of humanity for them to be comfortable and for them to engage. So there we've brought in from Will Gadara down the street here at 11 Madison Park, the unreasonable hospitality concept. I see some nods. It's awesome. And we're like infiltrating that through the team. And that's going to cause people to up level as well. And the people team and I have partnered on that.
Are there trade-offs that you've had to make with people in terms of they have to hit specific metrics, though, in order to keep that going? Because the technology is chasing at the bottom edge of them on a continuous basis, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see it as like a long journey here over the next probably 12 to 18 months. Yeah. So I think we did the first part, which was really capturing a lot of that value and efficiency, but like how we up level into unreasonable hospitality stuff, that's like still very much in play right now.
Yeah, that's great. Mary Alice, you guys have been at this for a couple of years now. And in parts of your business in particular, people can feel threatened, right? Mm-hmm. People know Thomson Reuters from the news side of things, and it's obvious that in that space, in some organizations, there's been more displacement. But you also talk a lot about trust and transparency and how you get people out of that sort of fear. Can you help us understand like what you have done specifically that helps people on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. If we go back to the end of 2022, when ChatGPT was launched, all the headlines were this is going to eliminate 50% of jobs and mass devastation. So people's initial feeling was fear and anxiety. And what we realized is that, number one, the constraint is not going to be tech. It's going to be talent, people, change management, leadership, all of those things. Exactly what you've heard from Nicole, Katie, Ronnie, Jonathan. And so we decided to approach this with a human-centric adoption strategy. And it started, we have a simple framework called the 4 T's with a hidden 5th T. The first one is tone from the top is absolutely essential. Overnight, the number one question and topic in all of our employee meetings was shifted from remote work, and I'm going to have to come into the office, to what's going to happen with AI and what does this mean for me? And so we leaned in really heavily into that. And this is where that hidden T is, transparency. We have 10x'd our communications, our opportunities for people to just have open Q&A with our CEO, with all of us. And we're super transparent. This is critically important to our business. If we don't get ahead of the competition and stay significantly ahead, we're going to be in this serious we're going to have a serious problem. And so everybody needs to be all in. But it's also critical for each of our people, like our colleagues, to lean into this for their own relevance. And that's something we hear all the time, like especially top talent, they want to stay relevant. They're concerned about not staying, like having access to the best tools, developing their skills continuously. And so that tone from the top is really critical. And that also includes usage. Like leaders have to be using the tools, sharing the examples of what they're learning, where they've failed, how they're adopting it in their daily use. So that's critical, and that continues. And again, that open transparency, 10xing your messaging with people. Following that is training. And so we've said, you know what, we're investing in your development. We're giving you lots of opportunities, certification courses. We have training for technologists, training for non-technologists. It's open for everyone, so you can go as fast as you want. And then we gave them access to tools. We have what we create a sandbox called Open Arena. And so we give people, everybody in the company has full access to these tools. There's over 50 language models and AI tools that they can use and experiment with. And then time. So giving them time and reinforcing the importance of devoting time to this. And we started off by launching Global Learning Days. So we did our first Global Learning Day in Q2 of 23, and we devoted it solely to AI and machine learning and understanding both from the customer perspective why this was so critical and how we were going to be embedding it into our products. And then also why it was critical for us to be adopting this inside. And talking to them about the tools, the usage, and giving them the day to experiment. We had well over half of our population participate in that Global Learning Day. We now do these 3 or 4 times a day. And the idea is to really reinforce, like share use cases, share examples, get people using the tools. We've expanded that to hackathons. Interestingly, you would think engineers would be the first ones to adopt. It's not true. We see some of the same adoption challenges there. And so we've had hackathons where every single person has to adopt the tools. And we see a dramatically different daily usage rate when people have to use it and start to realize the benefits. It makes everybody's job easier. And so that's been our approach. We're now at over 400 active use cases. 150 have been deployed and are scaling. We have over 80 that are in experimentation and others in earlier stage. And we have a lot more bottoms-up experimentation and work that's going on that's not captured in those that are being managed at the enterprise level.
So with that number of use cases going out, we're going to keep abusing a euphemism from earlier this morning, which is, do you ever worry about having too many squirrels and not enough baby elephants? And maybe this is where the rubber hits the road on a chief work officer. How do you and your IT partner decide how much is too much in terms of too thinly spread? Are we focused on the right things? Can we say no to some things? How does it actually work in terms of making those decisions? Because that's where life gets hard.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one is we took an enterprise approach, because otherwise everybody's going to be optimizing within each of their areas, which is a huge value miss. Because what we're seeing is a blurring of functional lines and roles. And so that opportunity to cut across and identify, there are a couple ways that we look at this. And again, all these use cases come to us. Number one is, what's the business benefit? There has to be a measurable business benefit. And that could be speed, like we're actually able to release, do product releases faster for our customers. It could be productivity savings, automation, otherwise. It could be growth. We have big benefits in sales and revenue. And so what's the business benefit? What's the opportunity for scaling? Like, can this go big? How big? What's the readiness of the team and the technology? Because there are lots of ideas where tech partners will say, well, it's going to come out later next year. That's not good enough anymore. The pace of experimentation and change is so fast. We've really shortened down the experiment and pilot cycle. And so once we have that data, then we're looking at, should we, we prioritize based on that, all of those criteria, and then we determine where we're going to invest. And then we track the results. Where we see success with teams, we'll lean in more with them with further ideas. And we share this part of that transparency, tone from the top, open communication. We share these. What's working well? What have been the failings? So that we can just increase the overall learning velocity of the organization.
So, Jonathan, Thomson Reuters has its HR and IT gears turning simultaneously. At Guild, you also talk with a lot of other executives at other companies. This chief work officer thing, is this a temporary situation? Is this where people need to go? What's your take?
I think in the long run, in the short run, there are different answers. So in the long run, I make a parallel to the early days of the internet, where there are no chief internet officers running around today. It's just like embedded in how the business works. But that doesn't mean that there aren't roles that need to spark AI use cases in organizations today. And so whatever set of roles in your organization work to spark the cases, the important thing is to spark those use cases.
Yeah, get the engine turning, start making this thing actually happen. Well, what are you seeing in terms of impact? How are you guys, this is the thing, Mary, I'll come back to you with this one too. Let's get specific with folks if we can. Where are you seeing impact from the efforts that you're putting in terms of actual business results?
So I tend to look at two different things. So internally and then externally, kind of like you were saying. So internally, I have a metric I look at efficiency. What's our effort per outcome we drive in the business? I look at religiously, it's gone up 20% plus year over year. And most of that gain is due to specific AI efforts and AI agents and automation that I can point to. At the same time, I look at customer satisfaction, and every single thing we do with AI, that number has to either stay the same or go up. I'm not willing to take a hit on that at all for any of these efforts while we get the efficiency gain. Now the pivot is to external. Yeah. And how do we get people using, our clients, using AI solutions we develop, whether it be an AI coach or an AI academy that a company like Coca-Cola has deployed to their franchise leaders who are managing P&Ls to be able to improve negotiation skills using AI as a tool, not as an end in itself, not teaching AI. I don't think you should teach AI. You should use AI to teach how to improve the business.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And it's come up sequentially today a bunch of times too, which is the whole don't teach AI as a standalone set of skills. Mary Alice, in terms of success metrics, like there's a conversation this morning that's been brewing continuously, which is adoption and usage aren't really a goal in and of themselves, right? We did a piece interviewing Brandon Samet from Zapier. Zapier is at 97% adoption, right? And his take is we're 10% of the way there in terms of doing this. How do you think about when you said you were measuring results out of these, 400 becomes 80, becomes a couple dozen pilots that you're trying to turn into baby elephants? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so similarly, we started with adoption, just a base measure, and we're at 80% active adoption across the active usage across the whole organization. But that doesn't help us drive productivity or really realize benefits, but it does give us an indication of engagement. We're going much deeper now. I would say many of the areas that we're talking about and others are actively involved in. Number one, customer service. We have 15% productivity benefits and improvement in serving our customers, reducing time to solution, et cetera, when they use these AI tools. Sales, we have increased revenue, increased contract value, reduced time to contract using certain tools. In engineering, we have 30% code adoption from AI. In HR, my function, we have, I think, some really exciting stuff. This year, we've already been shifting a number of or resolving many more of our inquiries through self-service that is enabled by AI. This year, we're aiming to shift 60% of inquiries that come into HR to resolution through AI. That's 34,000 inquiries that come in over the course of a year. And if we can shift 60%, that means my people can focus more on workforce planning, upskilling our workforce, helping people redesign how processes are done in the organization, and further benefit from AI.
So you're both looking at success metrics that have to do with like how are you accelerating your external roadmap, and what are we doing that's almost function by function specific capabilities internally. I want to thank you both for doing this. My takeaways, there's no need for a chief work officer long term, but there may be in the short term, just like we don't necessarily need a chief internet officer these days. Having the enterprise leadership be directly involved and engaged brings that sort of focus. And my personal favorite, don't teach AI, teach people how to do business with AI coming out of this. So Jonathan, Mary Alice, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.